Corrupt and evil cops are everywhere, but what happens when they actually get caught?
What else do you got on you? You got pocket knife, huh?
I'm done.
What's going on, though? Tell me what's going on, bud.
I'm done.
Help! Help! They hurting me! They hurting me! I don't know, felony. Get in the car! Help! Stop! Get in there!
Here are 6 examples of when corrupt cops got arrested. Starting with the dramatic case of this cop, who believed it was acceptable to unlawfully arrest a disabled man.
Take your money out. You're coming with us now, okay?
I just was going
So go ahead and grab your money, sir. We'll be walking out, okay? Go ahead and take your money out.
Can it please
Okay. So we're going to take your money out.
On May the 25th of 2022, officers confronted a mentally disabled man in a store as he was attempting to pay for his purchases. While he was in the process of counting his money, the officers approached and arrested him for absolutely no reason.
I got all the
We're
money.
leaving, okay? Walk down, okay? And you're going to be identified, okay? You're not going to be issued a trespass. That's okay. Come back and walk down, okay?
I'm calling 911. I was just getting caught. I got it.
The man had entered the store earlier to buy a bicycle and had completed his shopping, but as he was about to pay, he was abruptly interrupted by a group of officers who instructed him to leave the store without providing any valid reason.
Go ahead and put your money in there. I'm going to put your money, okay? You're coming with us, okay? We're not identifying you, man. You gotta go. Gotcha. Take your money out. You're coming with us now, okay?
I just was going
So go ahead and grab your money, sir. We'll be walking out, okay? Go ahead and take your money out.
Can it please
So we're going to grab your money out.
When the man began to argue that he had committed no wrongdoing and was only attempting to complete his purchase, one officer, later identified as Kenneth Skeens, turned physical and forcibly removed him from the store. It was at that moment that the man grew suspicious of their legitimacy as police officers and chose to call 911.
I'm calling 911. I was just getting caught. I got it. I don't want to lose it. I got my
Outside of the store, the man began to resist the officers, and when 911 eventually went through, he didn't receive any assistance.
I'm calling 911. No. I ain't hitting anyone. You're assaulting me.
When asked for his ID, he refused, and in response, the officer put him in handcuffs, placed him under arrest, and dragged him to the patrol car while falsely claiming that the store's owner did not want him there.
The reason to talk to you was they didn't want you in there no more, okay? So we have the reason. We asked you your name. You didn't give us your name. That's
What was
concealing
the
identity.
reason?
They didn't want you there, and they have that right as the business not to want you there anymore. Okay? So what you need to do, we're going to help you stand up. We're going to put you in that patrol unit over there, okay?
When they got to the patrol car, the police conducted an unlawful search of his person and damaged his property in the process, as they struggled to remove items from him even when he offered to do so himself.
All right, we got to search you, okay? You got anything on you that's going to poke us, cut us, or hurt us?
Yeah, I got a couple of knives.
You got a couple of knives on you?
Yeah,
Any needles? Yeah, get those bags off you, man, okay?
I can take them off. I'm the only
No,
one
we're
that
not
can take them off.
uncuffing
No, you're damaging my property.
That's fine, man.
The police claimed that if they released him from handcuffs, he might attempt to escape, despite the clear fact that due to his condition, he would not be able to outrun the officers.
Once handcuffs come on, you're going to try to run, and then we're going to, it's going to be worse.
No, I'll take it off with the handcuffs.
There you go.
And if that wasn't enough, the officer unlawfully seized his money, threatening him with charges so that he would comply.
You do, but that's why now you're going to jail for concealing identity, right?
You're going to have to get into this one for it. It's all tied up, man.
Okay.
Or better yet, kind of see your name.
Yeah.
You just have that trash in the ground.
That's not trash. That's important paper. And I need my paper.
All right, you know what?
However, little did the officer know that he would in fact be the one to face charges after the body cam footage was reviewed. He was immediately relieved of duty, and the New Mexico Attorney General filed criminal charges against him, including false imprisonment and perjury, both fourth-degree felonies. Furthermore, he would be charged with misdemeanor offenses of filing a false police report and battery. And while these officers might have had some suspicion that he was shoplifting, this next set of corrupt cops chose to arrest a man while fully knowing that he was not the suspect they were looking for.
Help! Help! They hurting me! They hurting me! I don't know, fellas. Get in the car! Bro, help! Stop! Get in there!
On October 26th of 2021, an officer initiated a traffic stop on a man later identified as 25-year-old Sylvester Hayes due to irregularities in his license plate number. However, the situation would quickly escalate when they wrongfully identified him as a wanted suspect.
Okay, well, what's your information? That's all.
Damn, I'm finna go get something for my baby, something to eat.
Okay, hey, if you're good, sir, you're good.
Earlier that morning, Hayes had gone out to purchase food for himself and his 4 children when he was stopped by the officer after they noticed something unusual with his license plate number. However, upon closer examination, they found no issue, yet still proceeded to request his identification.
Come on, step up. I'll explain it to you. I know, step out. I'll explain everything.
No, sir. Tell me why.
Hayes provided his ID, and when the officers discovered his name, they immediately opted to detain him and instructed him to exit the car. But unbeknownst to them, they had mistakenly associated his name with that of a domestic violence suspect due to similarities in their names. When Hayes refused to exit, the officers then called for backup and forcibly removed him from the vehicle.
Come on and step out. You're gonna get tased. Come on and step out. Come on and step out, bro. Come on and step out. Come on and step out. Come on and step out.
As he was being unlawfully arrested, he began to resist, all while emphasizing that he had done nothing wrong.
What are y'all? Come on, y'all pulling on me for what? Hold on. Y'all, I didn't give y'all some. Hey, bro, come get it. Bro, this is my gun. Bro, this is my, my.
However, despite the pleas, officers continued to use excessive force on him, resulting in many injuries.
Bro, what the Stop resisting. Stop resisting. Stop on my neck. You got some foot on my neck. Bro. I got some foot on my neck, bro. What the y'all doing, bro?
A few minutes later, another officer arrived at the scene, assessed the situation, and realized they had apprehended the wrong individual.
Based on your investigation, you have probable cause to stop him because y'all looked at his name in his picture earlier and could identify him?
We couldn't see it in the car. So that's the thing.
We have a traffic violation.
You got
We have a
traffic
traffic violation, yeah.
because of reason for contact.
Yeah, so I wasn't going to be like, oh, it's an investigative stop and then it turns into shit. Like, no. So we were going to get it.
So when the pistol come back clean, stolen?
It was clean.
Clean, okay.
He promptly approached Hayes and explained the situation. However, despite the misunderstanding, he mentioned that Hayes would not be released due to his resistance and a false claim of pulling a gun on the officers.
But if he resisted, he resisted. You know
Yeah,
what I'm saying?
he just
so we got him on that, right?
Yeah.
So that we're good.
Following his arrest, he was then taken to the jail on charges of resisting arrest and unlawful possession of a weapon. He was held in custody for several days, during which he lost his job and is now unable to seek employment due to the injuries sustained during the struggle with police. Thankfully, Hayes is not going quietly, as he has filed a lawsuit against the entire police force, and his case is still in progress at this time. Unlike the 2 previous cases involving corrupt cops dealing with civilians, this next one highlights a moment of a superior officer that was actually the suspect, in which he attempted to use his position to get off easily.
Okay, you got your ID, department ID, and your driver's license.
On November the 13th of 2016, officers would initiate a traffic stop on a speeding vehicle, and as they approached the car for questioning, they would be surprised to find out that the occupant of the car was a senior law enforcement officer.
Deputy. Lieutenant? Okay.
Alright, just attack right back to you.
The responding officer had previously received multiple 911 calls reporting a car that was driving recklessly on the highway. As he began to search for the car in question, he spotted a vehicle that matched the description and swiftly turned around to initiate a pursuit. It did not take long for that officer to get the driver to pull over. He approached the car and asked for the driver's ID, at which point they realized that he was County Sheriff's Office Lieutenant Brian Filipiak.
Okay, you got your ID, department ID, and your driver's license.
While conversing with him, the officer quickly noticed that he might have been driving under the influence. He then inquired if he had consumed any alcohol before driving and opted to conduct a sobriety test.
Brian, if I touch you,
come check on me.
if I have to pull you out of this truck right here, right now, it's going to be a big issue.
No, I don't want you to pull me.
When the officer informed the lieutenant of his decision to conduct the field test, the lieutenant hesitated and sought for special treatment, pleading with the officer to let him go.
What would you like me to do?
Just let me go.
I can't. I had multiple phone calls. You'd be in the same situation if I was in the vehicle in your county, correct?
However, he quickly realized his position as a lieutenant would not exempt him from the situation that he had now found himself in.
I've got multiple 911 calls about a reckless driver, plate and all matches, almost hitting vehicles. I get behind you. You hit the shoulder of the road twice.
All right, just let me stay here. Okay?
You can't. I'm going to ask you nicely to step out of this vehicle.
After several moments of argument and the lieutenant's refusal to exit the vehicle, the officers resorted to forcibly removing him from the car.
Out of this vehicle now.
Be
out of this vehicle now.
Don't touch
Brian,
me.
out of this vehicle now.
Don't touch me.
Let's step out.
No.
You know this. Out of this vehicle.
No.
It was only when the officers threatened to use a taser on him that he began to comply and would be placed under arrest.
No.
Step out of the vehicle! You're getting a taser. Back up.
No.
Taser right now if you don't get out. Out! Right now!
Following his arrest, Brian pleaded with the officers to let him go since he was a police officer, which would only prove to dig him a deeper hole, as he would be driven to jail where he would face multiple charges.
No.
You're under arrest.
No,
Place your hands behind your back.
No.
Don't make it even worse.
No, I'm not. Let's talk about it. Let's just...
No. Stop. I don't want to put you on the ground.
No,
I don't want to make
you
this
to.
worse.
All right, I will just sleep it off.
Dude, stop it right now. You know?
Stop tensing up, man.
And while Lieutenant Brian found himself in trouble due to his alcohol problem, this next police officer would be charged with murder in a crime that she had committed 20 years prior.
I mean, are you guys, is this something, I mean, you said I was going to interview somebody about art and how you guys are...
Here's
On June the 5th of 2009, shockwaves hit the police department in Los Angeles when a respected police detective identified to be Stephanie Lazarus was arrested after her involvement was discovered in the murder of Sherry Rasmussen 23 years prior. Rewind to 1986, Detective Lazarus found herself entangled in a love triangle with her ex-lover John Rutan and the deceased Sherry Rasmussen. When John chose to end the relationship and pursue a romance with Sherry, the detective simply could not bear the heartbreak. She repeatedly approached John, begging him to take her back, but when she realized he was no longer interested, she decided to take Sherry out of the picture. It was on February 24th of 1986 that Sherry's body would be discovered after having been beaten and murdered in her Los Angeles home. At first, the investigation would focus on the possibility of a burglary gone wrong. However, Rasmussen's family believed there was more to the story and suspected Lazarus's involvement. However, no evidence was initially discovered against the respected police detective, so the case was simply set aside. Unfortunately for Lazarus, the case would resurface in 2009 when evidence would be re-examined using advanced DNA testing techniques.
I don't want to talk about this in the squadron because I don't know who people are listening. And if we go to my side, everybody's always wondering what everybody else is doing.
No problem.
Okay. But like we're talking about being busy and stuff, we've been assigned a case that we've been looking at. Okay, it's a new case, and reviewing the case, there's some notes to see as far as your name being mentioned.
Oh, okay.
The DNA evidence from the crime scene would be compared to Lazarus's DNA, leading to a match and prompting to her interrogation.
Everything okay between you guys? I mean, there was never anything uncomfortable or anything between you and her?
You know, I don't know. I mean, it's been so many years. I mean, I can't even remember if we had a conversation. I mean, I may have seen her at his apartment. You know, geez, how many years ago is that? I don't even know what year she, got killed.
To prevent raising suspicion, officers decided to stage a highly confidential meeting in the interrogation room, seeking her opinion on something unrelated.
Stephanie, here's the situation. Is basically we knew that this, when we saw this in this chrono, that maybe there was some relationship there. That's what the chrono seemed to indicate, and we didn't want to come up to you at your desk and ask those kinds of questions or do anything. You know how up there people can see what's going on if you go into an interview room or people are in there getting supplies.
Okay.
So we wanted to afford you some privacy, some confidentiality to talk about this, because we thought it might be, something, you're married to someone else, obviously, and so forth, and that you may not want to, talk about these things in that setting where someone, we don't want the rumor mill or gossip or any of that kind of stuff to start.
That's fine.
But as Stephanie would find out hours later, it was all carefully planned as a setup. The situation took a sudden turn when the officers inquired about her knowledge of John Ruetten, her ex-lover, and it was at that moment she realized this was not a consultation, but rather an interrogation.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you. You said you dated John. How long did you guys date?
I mean, are you guys, is this something, I mean, you said I was going to interview somebody about art, and how you guys are... Here's
Initially, she pretended not to remember the name, until after a few moments when she admitted to knowing John. As her uneasiness grew, she asked why they were curious about her ex-lover, and her worst fears would be confirmed when the officer revealed her DNA had been found at the scene.
You're right.
I mean, if you guys are claiming that I'm a suspect, then, I got a problem with, with that. Okay? So, if you're doing this as an interrogation, you're saying, hey, I'm a suspect. Well, now I got a problem with, now you're accusing me of this? Is that what you're saying?
Apart from DNA evidence, it soon became crystal clear that she had been involved in the crime, as her behavior and confrontational attitude had given her away.
Because now I'm thinking I probably need to talk to a lawyer.
Okay.
I mean,
well,
because I know how this stuff works, okay? Don't get me wrong, you're right, I have been doing this a long time.
Yeah.
And I wish I had been recording this.
After a period of questioning and deliberation, officers would conclude that she was guilty, and subsequently, she would be sentenced to 27 years to life in prison. And while she was able to conceal her crime for over a decade, this next cop faced immediate justice after he landed himself in hot water for attempting to obstruct the very laws he should have been upholding.
And I'm not questioning.
I'm invoking my right to an attorney right now. Okay. You understand that?
So take him in.
Book me for
Book it. For obstruction. Obstruction. Book it.
I'm not obstructing.
Take him over here to our unit. Take him over here to our unit.
On April 21st of 2020, officers accosted and detained a senior officer, later identified to be 60-year-old Sheriff James Luan, after he literally helped a criminal escape justice. Only days prior, officers had attempted to arrest a suspect who would later be identified as a city councilor by the name of Philip Chacon, who had stabbed a man following a disagreement. However, Luan, who arrived on the scene out of uniform, demanded that other officers leave so that he could take charge.
You're in charge?
Yeah, yes.
Get your people back. I'll bring him in.
Bring who in?
Phil Chacon? That's who you have a warrant for?
Right.
Pull everybody out. I'll bring him in.
I don't want to pull them out.
Huh?
I don't want to pull them back.
Excuse me? I'm not asking. I'm telling you. I will bring him in. Okay?
Unbeknownst to them, his true intentions were not to make an arrest, but rather to help Chacon escape. However, it did not take long for the police to discover his actions and obtain a warrant for his arrest.
Stay out here.
When they apprehended him at his residence, they placed him in handcuffs and proceeded to search his home for any evidence that was related to the incident. And after searching his house, the officer wanted to search his phone, which Luan refused and immediately asked to speak to his attorney.
Unlock your phone, unlock it, give it back to me, and I'm going to remove the security settings. I don't want your passcode. I'm not asking for your passcode. I'm asking you to unlock the phone. For the search warrant, you can read it if you want under number 2.
I will if I get a chance to talk to my attorney.
It doesn't work like that.
Marty,
this is not a negotiation.
get off.
This is not a negotiation, sir.
As officers arrested him, he initially resisted, but would eventually be overpowered and taken to jail, where he faced charges for aiding a felon and intimidating a witness. He was later sentenced to 3 years in prison and 1.5 years probation, while also being relieved of duty. While he learned the hard way by losing his job for helping a criminal escape, the next corrupt cop lost his job for the weirdest reason of all time. On November the 1st of 2018, a group of officers were startled when one of their cruisers crashed while responding to a distress call. However, upon closer inspection, they were even more stunned to find out that the accident had been caused by their colleague, who had consumed alcohol and taken the wheel while on duty.
Augie. He needs to. Yeah, Augie, come here. Let's go out here in the garage. We got to put your weapons away. Come out here, we'll talk. The car's just being taken to Lumpkins.
Unable to continue the mission, the officer, later identified as Justin Augustine, was brought back to the station for interrogation and to face consequences for his actions. But little did the rest of the officers know that things would not be as straightforward as they had expected. As soon as they arrived at the station, an officer disarmed Justin and then commenced the interrogation. He also informed him of his intentions to conduct a drug and alcohol test, at which point he started to feel uneasy, as he knew he was about to be caught red-handed.
When you total a vehicle, you got to go down for a drug and alcohol assessment. Everybody that wrecks a cruiser that totals it has to go down there. So what we do is just take your taser off of you, and you have any backup weapons on you or anything? Drop your vest or your duty belt, because you don't need that. We're going to go down and do a drug and alcohol test down at the hospital, you and I. And you don't need all your gear, so.
Aware that the test would incriminate him, Justin chose to refuse the test and became uncooperative, insisting that he just wanted to go home.
What else do you got on you? You got pocket knife, huh?
I'm done.
What's going on, though? Tell me what's going on, bud.
I'm done.
What do you mean you're done? You're going to go with me to take the test, Augie? You're refusing it? You don't want to do that.
I'm done.
Okay, so what does that mean?
When he was granted permission to leave, he began displaying emotional behavior, trying to blame his alcohol consumption on the difficulties of his life. However, officers were undeterred by his behavior and continued to persuade him to take the test.
What'd you say? Who is? You just wrecked a cruiser. It's not the end of the world. I know, it's not the end of the world. We can do this, Augie. If you just go down and take the test like we're asking you, if you do that, then we can at least get that cleared to where you can come back to work.
When he realized that the officer could not be influenced, he attempted another approach by claiming that he had been drunk before but was now sober. As expected, his plea would be rejected, and at that juncture, he understood he had no alternative but to comply, leading him to burst into tears as he pleaded for the officer's help.
Now again, I want you to understand that I know you probably are. You're right. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it or lie to you. Huh? Augie, come on, bud. Come on, just calm down, bud. I understand you're upset and you gotta calm down. Remember, Augie.
You just tell what you.
Huh? I'm talking to you as a friend here.
Fuck you.
All right.
After a few moments of deliberation and observation, it would later be determined that he was actually guilty of operating under the influence and charged with OVI, placed on administrative leave, and would later be sentenced to 1 year of probation, 177 days of suspended jail term, and a $300 fine and court costs. If you enjoy true crime content like this, be sure to subscribe to see more.